The silence in this house is louder than any argument we ever had. 10 years, a full decade. We built a life inside these walls. I can still see the ghost of a younger us painting this living room, laughing so hard we had to put the rollers down. We picked out every piece of furniture, hung every picture, and celebrated birthdays, holidays, and 1,000 tiny victories nobody else would remember. Now most of those pictures are down. The furniture feels cold and staged, like a house just waiting for a new family to give it some meaning. 10 years of memories and shared history, all destroyed before our eyes. It didn't happen with a big dramatic explosion like you see in the movies. There wasn't a single act of betrayal. It was quieter, slower. It was a subtle shift. One devastating mistake that we didn't even realize we were making until the foundation had already crumbled. It was the slow creeping death of real communication. And by the time we noticed, we were already strangers living under the same roof. I remember the beginning so clearly, it just felt easy. We talked about everything and nothing. Our dreams for the future, the dumb thing my boss said, the plot of some movie we just watched. We were a team. Communication wasn't something we had to work on. It was just the air we breathed. We were all in, and our conversations were the threads that wove our lives together. It was a partnership built on kindness, acceptance, and a genuine curiosity about what was going on in each other's heads. But life, as it always does, got more complicated. A mortgage, promotions at work, the beautiful chaos of raising kids. All the energy we once poured into each other was now split a dozen different ways. And that's where the first hairline crack appeared. Slowly, so subtly we didn't even see it, the way we talked started to change. Our conversations shifted from connection to logistics. They stopped being about our hopes and fears and turned into weekly production meetings. Did you get the dry cleaning? Who's taking the kids to soccer Saturday? The car needs an oil change. We weren't sharing our inner lives anymore. We were just managing the business of our household. This is such a common trap. You can get so focused on being parents or providers that you forget to be partners. The idea of us gets buried under a mountain of responsibilities. We were great at running our lives, but we had stopped actually living them together. The conversations that build intimacy, the ones about feelings, vulnerability, and just being, were replaced by a to-do list that never ended. We didn't notice because on the surface everything looked perfect. We were a successful, functioning unit, but the heart of it all was starting to wither from neglect. The next phase of our decline was all about avoidance. To keep the peace in a life that already felt stressful and overbooked, we started letting the small things go. A minor annoyance, a slight disagreement, a feeling of being overlooked. It just seemed easier to swallow it than to start a conversation that might turn into a fight. But unresolved issues don't just disappear, they fester. Every unspoken frustration became another brick in the wall we were building between us. When you stay silent about what's bothering you, you're just forcing your partner to play a guessing game. A game they almost always lose, which only leads to more bitterness. This is where you start to pull away emotionally. It's a defense mechanism. When you feel like you're not being heard over and over again, you start to disengage to protect yourself. I remember that feeling so well. It wasn't a conscious choice, it was just a gradual retreat. I started putting more of my emotional energy into my work, my hobbies, my friends, places where I felt seen and valued. He did the same, pouring himself into his own projects. It wasn't about finding someone else. It was about finding a sense of worth that we weren't getting from each other anymore. Our conversations, when they happened at all, became totally superficial. We stuck to safe topics like the weather or the news because the risk of sharing something real felt too high. The potential for it to be dismissed was just too painful. This emotional distance creates a vicious cycle. The more one person withdraws, the more the other might push for a reaction, which just makes the withdrawn partner pull away even further. There's a special kind of loneliness you can only feel when you're sitting right next to someone you used to share everything with. It's this deep, echoing quiet in the space between you. We were physically present in each other's lives, but emotionally miles apart. We'd sit in the same room, scrolling on our phones with only the TV to break the silence. We had become roommates held together by a marriage certificate, not partners in a relationship.